Hi, I'm David Souaid from OnDeck Canada. Join me on the S.M.E podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining the show. We got a great episode today with David Souaid. Now, David Souaid is the Chief Revenue Officer at OnDeck Canada. So a little bit about David. David is the co-founder and president of a Velocity Financial Group, which is now OnDeck Canada. David brings over 20 years of experience in the fintech industry and is a driving force behind platform solutions, distribution, and product marketing initiatives. Before OnDeck Canada, David was Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Optimal Payments Incorporated. He later became the co-founder and president of the Sterling Card Payment Solutions. Before starting Velocity Financial Group, he has been recognized for his thought leadership as a top 25 executive leader in lending by the Canadian Lenders Association, the CLA. David's passion for fintech extends beyond his professional career as he actively supports the startup community and empowers women in business through his work with Startup Canada and the Women Founders Fund. David also serves as chair of the Miss Edgar's School Foundation, where his daughters attend. His passion for fintech's future and its impact on entrepreneurship is evident through his involvement in various initiatives that support innovation and growth in the industry. So it's going to be an interesting episode today, guys. We're going to go more on some of the lending and access to capital. So it's going to be an interesting episode. So sit back and absorb. All right, guys, we have David Souaid from OnDeck Canada. David, how you doing?
I'm good, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's slowly starting to warm up here in Canada. I know here, and you're a fellow Canadian. Whereabouts are you right now, David?
We're based in Montreal. I'm in Montreal right now.
Montreal. Okay. So I am based in Ajax, Ontario, Canada, which is east of Toronto. And I don't need to whip out my Fahrenheit to Celsius calculators because it's nice to talk to a fellow Canadian. For listeners of the show who normally see me talk to the guests who are from the U.S. or overseas or wherever, I usually have to whip it out and say, all right, it is whatever the number is. So we're actually okay this time. So in either case, it's starting to warm up, but I'm telling you, David, I'm just worried it's going to be like a slight tease. And next thing you know, we're going to get like 30 centimeters of snow that's just going to hit us like it was, what was it, Nova Scotia or New Brunswick in the East End?
Yeah. No, usually we get one more blast in a little bit, but who knows? Maybe this year will be an exception.
Well, yeah. Well, now that we're kind of getting used to having a little bit more sun, I don't want it to have that stuff coming in. So, all right. OnDeck Canada, David Souaid, which is a cool last name, I must say. What is your story?
Our story really is about helping small businesses. Back in 2008, during the credit crisis, there was an opportunity we felt to work in areas where the banks weren't able to service or were tightening up from a capital perspective. And so we stepped in with an opportunity to help small businesses get access to working capital that they might not otherwise have been able to get access to, and really make that experience of going online easier, faster, and less frictionless. And so everything we've done in terms of building this business and starting this business has been with the entrepreneur and the small business in mind, but helping them get access to capital to help them fulfill their dream and their missions in life.
Okay. So you guys loan to small businesses, which is great because I think, obviously being a small business myself, sometimes getting that initial capital to start purchasing whatever you need to purchase, because although I'll be honest, for business owners, the fun thing is actually to buy stuff, right? Thinking that, I could just write off all this equipment and stuff like that. But sometimes going to the big banks, they want to see a lot of stuff, and with everything going up nowadays, so it's tough to find, especially if you want to renovate your office or renovate your building or have to buy that new piece of equipment to run your business. It can get a bit challenging. So it's nice that you guys so you solely focus on small business. There's no regular people that just wants a loan or anything like that.
No, small and medium-sized businesses, and I think you're right. Like, again, when we first started, it was you had to go into the branch. You had to bring a lot of documentation. The experience was cumbersome and had a lot of friction in it. So we've really been about, these small business owners are busy. They have a lot on their plate. And so how can we make it easy, digital, go online, 10 minutes, you apply, you upload some documents. And then hopefully we're able to get you the capital that you need to grow your business. So it's a combination of making it a better customer experience and also understanding the different small business customers, maybe a little bit more uniquely than some of the traditional financial institutions have.
Well, yeah, because going back to big banks or credit unions, they're just probably used to just like home loans, car loans, maybe renovation loans or something like that. But when it comes to small businesses, it can be almost anything, really.
That's right.
Right. So it's nice that you carved out your ideal client in that sense. So your ideal client, is there a certain restriction for the type of businesses that you guys will lend to in terms of size or volumes or anything like that?
Yeah. So typically, we finance customers who do a minimum of $100,000 a year of sales, who've been in business about at least 6 months. And then from there, we finance most industries. There might be some restrictions in certain industries where they're higher risk than others, but generally speaking, wide number of industries and minimum size and minimum time in business, and everything else, we pretty much look at, on a case by case basis.
Okay. And is there any particular industries that, what you would not generally like to lend to? I just want to make sure, because my listeners are they do all business all over the space.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many unless there's something that's got a certain amount of, maybe I want to say, reputational risk associated. We wouldn't do like certain types like that. But otherwise, no. It's just certain industries have more restrictions than others. So and based on time and year. So certain industries right now are maybe struggling a little bit more than others. So, for example, construction is one that we've really shied away from. It's going through some challenging times. So we shy away from that. Some of the logistics companies right now are struggling. But again, I'm giving you a moment in time during COVID. Those industries were doing really well, and we were very much supportive of those industries. Whereas our traditional customers, restaurants, retail, auto shops, et cetera, we're struggling a little bit. So, generally speaking, we look at everything, but at certain times, certain industries might have, more challenges that we have to adapt our credit profile to recognize the macro environment that we're in.
So let's go back even a little bit further. So OnDeck Canada has been around for how long? But then also, what personally you, David, what got you into the whole lending space that just felt like this is where you belong?
Yeah, so we started in 2008, again, as I mentioned, and really it was at a time I was working for a company called Optimal Payments, now called PaySafe, and we were out there looking for different industries in the U.S. in financial services, and I came across the small business lending space, and I thought, wow, like the way that they're doing this, digital, online, so easy. I think it would benefit that small business customer in Canada. We don't have that alternative lending, small business lending space. I was in the payment processing world. I saw a lot of overlap and synergies between the industries and restaurants, retail, and auto, who could benefit from working capital and credit to help grow their business and sort of combine payments and lending. So that's how we did it. We started. I owned a company called Sterling Payments, incubated the current version of OnDeck Canada inside of there till it got to a certain size and then went out on its own. So it was really just seeing an opportunity in the US that I wanted to bring back to Canada to help small business. And it worked really well with our payment processing business that targeted the same customers, but knowing they needed capital, they needed other things other than just payment processing. So the combination worked out really well. And now the two companies are separate and doing well.
So basically anything involved with funds transferring between people or business, that's your world, which is really nice to hear.
Yeah.
So how big is the current team that you guys have right now at OnDeck Canada?
We're about 70 people at OnDeck Canada.
Yeah. And you have a lot of office locations or anything like that?
No, actually, mostly, I would say our Montreal office is our main office, but now with a, remote first work from anywhere culture, we've got people in Ontario, we've got people in Saskatchewan working remotely. So we've got people a little bit everywhere, but our primary office is Montreal.
All right. So then what is your kind of goals over the next 5 years, though? Are you looking to build another location, like an actual physical location? You said the head office is in Montreal. Are you looking to have like provincial or regional offices, or do you want to still keep it as lean and maybe just grow your team remotely?
I think we'd like to expand our presence out west for a variety of reasons, just more local presence, different time zones, a bit better coverage. But I think generally speaking, keeping it lean, we're again, digital, primarily online based applications. So, really we can service people from anywhere. So I don't think it's as much about the location as much it is how can we expand our offerings? How can we build more of a financial services ecosystem for customers to benefit from lots of different services? But today, right now, we're focused on credit products. We have a flex product, which is a variable financing product. We have a term loan, we have a line of credit, and we have sort of a combination we call hybrid. So I think today we're very core to lending and multiple types of lending products, but we'd like to expand that to, broader financial services over the next, call it 2-3 years.
Yeah, no, because I was looking at your website. Yeah, so if you go to the website, like I tell all my listeners, definitely check out the website. Yeah, you'll see it there. You have fixed term loans. Okay, that seems understandable. If your line of credits, obviously it's great. I was really curious. I saw the flex funds. I was like, oh, repaying it based on your daily card sales. I'm like, that's new. I've never heard any place that offers that.
Yeah, that's actually ironically how our business started. It's a form of people will know it sometimes as a merchant cash advance. It's a form of factoring where we purchase the receivables from the customer and then you repay it as a percentage of your daily sales. So it's really good for seasonal merchants. Think of a merchant in Niagara who booms in the summer, struggles a little bit more in the winter. We collect more when you're in, your good season, and we collect less in your down season. So it really aligns with your cash flow and your cash sales more than a term loan, which is very fixed daily. You need to have a lot of consistent sales to cover it. So it's a nice product for seasonal merchants or those who have variable sales.
It almost reminds me of those variable mortgages that are going up and down this over the last couple of years, which unfortunately for us in the Alfred household, our mortgage is due in April. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with that one because it is very interesting from that perspective. So if you can guesstimate how big, like how many clients do you generally have at this point? Because I mean, I like the idea of like saying, okay, you don't have to go to a branch, you can do it online and stuff like that. Do you have like, I'm obviously trying to give a random number here, but I assume you guys have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot in the sense that, over the last 15 years, we've probably serviced, at least 20,000 customers over a life cycle. Some customers come in, some customers, go out. We have, several thousand customers at any given time. Again, just depending on some customers come in, they use us for a couple of, loans and then they leave, then they come back. Some come once and leave. On average, we have customers who stay typically, on average, 3 to 4, loans or, renewals, we call it.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. So you've been running this for a while, actually. So when you first started, or maybe during your current operations, though, what do you notice has been like your biggest spend driver at this point, like running your operation?
I would say two things. One, obviously, digital marketing acquisition is probably our biggest driver in terms of driving new clients. And the second, we invest a lot in technology and risk automation. The core of our business, right, is predicting repayment or predicting customers who we can lend to and then collect back from. So you really got to make some, pretty significant investment in your risk and your technology and your marketing. Those are probably the two areas I would say.
All right. Is there anything else, like in terms of expenses that the average person probably didn't even know that you guys had to spend? Like you said, you talk about digital marketing and your software and your risk and stuff like that. Anything else?
Yeah. Cost of capital, right? So our cost of capital is probably one of the biggest costs that we have.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now,
and it's only been going up lately.
I've never known of those things going down generally, right? It just keeps driving up. So I'm going to ask you now about social media. Now you talk about digital marketing. How important is social media to you guys? And it's not a social media podcast, but how important is that to your business and what tools do you guys generally use?
Yeah, I would say it's important from the perspective of validation. In your financial services, your Trustpilot scores, your reviews are really, really important. From a social media perspective, it's a little bit of engagement, it's a little bit of education and knowledge. We're on the, all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, et cetera. But I would say really it's more some of the review sites, some of the Trustpilot ratings. It's just validation of who we are and what we do. When you're in money and financial services, it's really important to make sure customers know they've had good experiences with us, and we're a well-known, well-run company. So yeah, social media, decent amount of engagement, but generally it's some of the other things.
Interesting. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the industry itself here. So Like, what is your opinion on the small business lending industry and where do you see it going?
Yeah, the industry's evolved a lot. When we first started, sort of getting financing from anyone other than the banks was a little bit unheard of. In the States, it was a little bit more common, but in the States, you have, 10,000 banks and it's just such a much bigger country. So when we first started, very unknown, a lot of very skeptical. Over the last 10 years, it's become much more mainstream. Like, for example, when we first started, we need to get bank statements. It was hard to get customers to get comfortable with bank statements. Now you have, whether it's, Flinks or Plaid or any of these online bank statement providers, you integrate directly. Those statements are able to come directly to us. Customers are getting more and more comfortable with that information. We'll hopefully have open banking here in 2025, which again will further access to customers' information, so they have choice where to apply and where their information goes. So I think that's sort of the trend that I'm starting to see. Customers accepting, getting comfortable with small business lenders, the process, how easy it is. And now it's just going to that next level. How do we make it more digital, less friction? They're busy. They have a lot on their plate. So we need to keep evolving with them. And then the second trend I would see is much more around, you'll hear terms like super app and ecosystem, really being where the customer is in a one-stop shop. So places that have digital banking, payments, lending, all together. And I think us being part of that ecosystem where a customer can get everything, is a huge component of where this is going. Because, and I'll just say one last thing, a lot of people in our industry, as an example, will look at all the data and they'll make offers to customers. They'll say, oh, we see your 24 months of credit card processing history, or we see your bank statements for the last 5 years. We think you'd qualify for X dollars. Click here and we'll fund you in 24 hours. So making it even easier where, you've already been pre-approved or pre-qualified, I think is sort of where things are headed.
Oh, that's interesting. Like I remember one of the biggest annoyances I would have would be like, if I was to say, this is totally really just a regular banking, but if you just want to do a pre-authorized debit, right? So they just deduct your bank account or something for a bill and you had to provide some type of void check and I had to literally look for a paper void check, right? It was just mind blowing. I mean, nowadays, I think pretty much all should have at least the digital version that you could at least get the information right. But I think the idea too of like that one-stop shop of applying for any type of financing, checking your, paying any bills, doing all the whole all-in-one, because I think for most, and I believe for all websites, especially if they build it off of websites, they want their users on their website for the longest time possible, right? And If they can, instead of the user having to do, okay, I'm going to apply for business financing on OnDeck. Okay, now I got to go to this bank to pay my bill over here. Oh, I got to set up a pre-authorized payment over on this website over here for whatever. And to bring all those tools together would make a lot of users' life a lot easier. So I think you just touched upon it there. So just generally, I forgot to ask, walk us through from OnDeck's from A to Z or A to Z. How long is the actual process for someone to say, okay, I need some funding to, all right, I'm either getting it or I'm not getting it?
Yeah. So I think the process to apply, if you have all the documents you need, literally takes you 10 minutes if you went online, uploaded or connected your bank statements. And then I would say that within 48 hours, you'll have an offer, an approval, an amount, terms. And then we can fund you within 24 hours after you've accepted, the offer and made your selections in terms of amount and payment frequency, weekly, monthly. So it can be as fast as 72 hours. It can be even faster if you're an existing client and you want a renewal. It could be, 24 hours in that case. But generally speaking, I would say, 72 hours, 3 business days, we can go from applying to being funded.
All right. And now I've never used the platform myself. So, there's going to be some of those owners that, they're used to walking into a branch and they used to love to, sit down with someone like a, loan officer and then just negotiate. Because that's what a lot of business owners forget to do, is that they actually do negotiate a lot of things. So when a proposal comes in for whatever the term is it flexible to the point that, okay, all right, I think I want a little bit more, a little bit less. I want to change the interest rate. Is there flexibility that if like a 1-800 number they can call or someone to chat with? How is that process?
Yeah. So every customer who comes in, who makes it through the application, if they make it all the way through, they get assigned a lending advisor. That lending advisor will be part of the process when an offer is made on term, frequency, or product. And they'll work with that customer. So we really try to make it digital end to end, but with the human touch, so that the lending advisor gets on the phone and says, look, we have these 3 products. You've been approved for all 3, or you've been approved for 2 of the 3. Here's the term. It's 6, 9, 12 months. We have weekly, we have monthly, and just tries to understand their needs. Are they someone who has a fixed project? They know exactly how much they need, or maybe a line of credit's better for them. They need some working capital. They're not sure exactly how much they need. So the line of credit is the right way to go, or maybe it's a combination. We call it dual or hybrid. So definitely a lending advisor is the way to go here to just guide them on those decisions to understand their needs.
And if you can give like so any of my listeners who are thinking of even going into OnDeck right now, is there a certain document or something that you find a lot of people struggle to either provide that might delay the actual response times from your team?
I would say the number one thing would be bank statements. If you can provide us, the last 6 months of bank statements, or you're willing to connect your bank statement to one of the providers that we use to connect online, that's the number one thing that can delay, a decision. All the other documents, typically, we can either gather them directly or customers generally have available. But bank statements is by far and away the number one.
All right. So when you first started telling people, hey, I'm a small business lender, did a lot of, prospects or clients be like, what is that? Did they have any misconceptions about that? Right? It's like, digital, so what? You're going to have all my information? I mean, why should I go to you as opposed to going to like the branch or the banks or something like that?
Yeah, there were so many misconceptions early, or certainly earlier on. Now I think, the small business customer is more educated. I think SEBA, by the way, has had a huge awakening in terms of customers, getting accustomed to a little bit more financing of debt, of repayment, and so the industry's sort of been there to support that.
So can you back up for a second there, David? Yeah. What is SEBA for some listeners who don't know what that is?
Sorry, I apologize. That was the government offered during COVID, all small business customers anywhere from 40,000 to 60,000 of loans to get them through the pandemic.
Okay. Sorry. Continue with your thoughts.
Sorry. So there were a lot of misconceptions. Obviously, we're a higher rate product than the banks. And so for a lot of customers, they look at us as, similar to the sort of credit card rates. And so there's sort of the stigma associated with 1, debt, and 2, rates. But again, we're there to fill a void where the banks may or may not play, and customers who need capital where the business case justifies it for them. It all kind of makes sense. So there was a little bit of that around it. But as you educate customers, as they get confidence and experience, I think they get over that at a certain point in time. But that was certainly the challenge early on.
All right. So currently with OnDeck, what has been your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
Great question. Biggest failure. I would say biggest failure has to be, you got me, not that we haven't had them. I just have to think, sorry, I don't know how to turn that off.
Yeah, no worries. And just so while you're thinking of it too, the reason why I always ask this to all my guests is because, especially for when we get to tips from the pro segment, where you have listeners that say, okay, you know what? Maybe I want to get into small business lending as well, right? And I want to maybe get involved in certain businesses. But as great as everything is, I want not just the good stuff of, okay, here's how great this industry is. I also want the real stuff too, right? Especially for when we hit from the tips from the pro, there are going to be some red flags that to help it. So then it gives the listener like, oh, okay, so either I really want to follow in David's footsteps, or okay, maybe I should think of a different one, right? Because I don't think any of us want someone to start. It doesn't have to be with small business lending, but any business venture at all. We would rather you not spend hundreds, thousands, whatever dollars to start something and it just craps out at the end. Or if there's something you could have avoided that saved you on fees or something, those are the things you want to think about, right? So and every successful business like David, they've had road bumps. I mean, maybe he might have the first one that didn't have any road blocks as well. And they've been successful since day one. So, all right, David. So sorry about that. So
Yeah, no, that's helpful. No, I think as I've been thinking about it, I think the biggest success for me, where I think we were pretty proud was during COVID, a lot of our competitors stopped funding and stopped lending, and we didn't. We kept going. We continued to support customers. We would do things like payment holidays and continue to fund. And so I'm very proud of us that we were able to do that at a really, really challenging time. And that we've been there generally for small business customers to help them, grow their business generally. Not everybody, but many. And I think if failure for me, the biggest failure would be that we didn't, I think that we didn't get enough. We weren't as well capitalized as we should have been to be able to help early on more customers. I think for a variety of reasons, it was just challenging to raise capital in the early days. And I think, we missed the mark a little bit with some customers that we just couldn't service. Less that today, but early on, I'm disappointed we couldn't help more customers in the early days. We just weren't as well capitalized.
That's a very good point that you said, that you actually wanted to help more. Like, I'm sure, so there were probably some applications at the time where, like today you'd fund it no problem, but back then, for whatever reason, you just couldn't get it done, right? And you feel like, oh, I'm not letting him down, but just like, oh man, it's a missed opportunity. I should have we should find a way to make it work. So, all right, no, good to hear. And I like how the listeners are hearing this to show that it's not all, bright smiling flowers when you're starting your business here. So where can people reach out to you if they want to pick your brain, or they want to do any questions on OnDeck?
Yeah. So, you can come online to ondeck.ca. And if you want to reach out to me, it's, my last name, D, then my last name, Souaid at ondeck.ca.
Awesome. So, all right, David, it was an awesome episode. Thanks for being on.
Ken, thank you so much. It was really fun.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.